Meet Feral Cheryl.
Do you see how I show up to protest Scientology? Very cutesy, very hydrated, very feral, very loud.
The fearless voice shaking up TikTok and YouTube with her hilarious videos and relentless protests outside of Scientology's HQ in Clearwater, Florida.
I'm looking for my dad's soul. He gave it to you guys, and I want it back.
Trying to get a refund.
Today I'm thrilled to have Cheryl here to reveal the untold truths of her past and the strength behind her viral activism. Don't miss this eye-opening conversation. Music!
I got my dad's drum.
Yeah, you have a ukulele as well. Can you play?
Not very well. I can play 3 chords. That's it. C, E, and is it G? I think.
Nice.
I'm really not that. My dad taught me the thing about the ukulele is my dad. When I saw him, I met with him when I was 10 years old, and he gave me his ukulele and he taught me those 3 chords. So those are the only ones I've retained. So that's why after his passing, I'm like, need a ukulele. So I spent his money on one.
Hey, I hope we hear you play it someday. My first question for you, Feral Cheryl, is why are you called Feral Cheryl?
For starters, I grew up in the 70s, so I'm a Gen X latchkey kid from Kilburn. And I've just had to, and because of both my parents being who they were, I kind of had to grow up by myself. I had to take care of myself. So I just feel very feral. I've always been feral. I've never felt like I fit in. And then once this community, this SPTV community came about, I started talking a lot with Alicia, and she has that feral thing. So she kind of got me to come up with a new name. Everyone's like, you need to come up with your own channel name. Come on, you've got to come up with a channel name. I'm like, I don't know. Well, Feral Cheryl, because that's basically what I am. And yeah, it kind of stuck. And now I just like to go by Feral. I don't even like being called Cheryl anymore. Just call me Feral.
You've been making videos since January, is that correct?
Well, yeah. Aaron, one day, I met him previously when he was running for city council. So he had my number. He said, hey, if anyone wants to come to this campaign kickoff, just send me an email. So I did, and he sent me an address. I'm like, this man is crazy. He's just, okay. So I showed up. And the thing was, it was at his wife's house, at Heather's house, and everyone from the Aftermath show was there. Mike Rinder, Mary Kahn, Amy Scobie, Matt Pesh, Nasty Nathaniel was there. It was a whole bunch. So I was just sitting there feeling completely gobsmacked. Oh my God, this is incredible. This is everyone from the anti-Scientology. Well, at that time for me, from the anti-Scientology group. And now, of course, that's splintered off a bit. And so last year in January, when this whole thing kicked off, well, William Good started when? Was it November? October, November when William got big? And then, so in January, Aaron sent an email out to a text out to a couple of us. Hey, would you guys come down to Flag to protest? And I'm like, I've only been waiting all my life for this. So I showed up there too. And that's it. We've been down there, apart from in the summer, we've been down there weekly.
Yeah, and this isn't just like a random thing for you, is it? It's not like just a fan of the show. You actually grew up with a Scientologist. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
My father was one of the founding Scientologists, so he felt that was a big kind of code of honor for him, that he was one of the first, and he had actually done or been in Scientology with LRH, and he knew him pretty well. So that was a big thing for my dad. I was born in 65. By then, my dad was already attending the founding org in Washington, D.C. My mom didn't want to join. She just didn't. She just wanted to be a a mom and a homemaker. And my dad basically, he gave my mum, he's told her, I gave you a child. He was Scottish. So you would have a wee bit of havingness. So that's who I was to him, a wee bit of havingness.
Can you explain what that means for anyone watching that doesn't know that term?
So in Scientology terms, havingness is things you have, is things you own, things that you focus on that you want in your life. And so for my mum, really, it was something to keep her busy. That was, give her something to have, something to keep her busy, because she doesn't want to come to the org and get on the can. So let's just keep her busy with a baby. My mum didn't, she went down to the org and she sat down there on the cans and she said she didn't like it. So that put a strain on the marriage because my dad was fully in, head first. He would spend all day at the org, and then he was a musician. So he would play for a couple of hours at night and then come home at 2 a.m. and be gone again by like 6, 7 in the morning back to the org. So my mum never saw him. She was a 25-year-old girl from Kilburn with a baby all by herself in another country. So, that was really hard for her. And she was already traumatized. She grew up during the war. So she already had like that generational trauma from growing up during the war.
How did that generational trauma and Scientology trauma affect you and lean onto you and how you grew up?
Well, my dad had it too. And this is why he said he didn't want children. When he was young and he went, because he was born in 1927. So he saw the horrors. He was old enough to be aware of the horrors in Europe during the 30s and 40s. And he always said how they put up horrible pictures of what they did to children during the war. So that really affected him. So he already had this thing where he really didn't want children. And then, of course, once you become a Scientologist, it's your responsibility to save the world, and don't focus on anything else because it's a distraction from doing Scientology. So basically, that's what I was. I was just a distraction to him. That's what he wanted my mum, just to keep her busy. He wanted a wife and a family, but he wanted all of us to be in Scientology. My mum also used to tell me that when he came home at 2 a.m, he'd put me out the crib and he would grab my little finger and go around the room and point at things and name them. So I was already doing locationals when I was just a couple of months old. We left him when I was 15 months old. So until I was 15 months old, he was talking to me in spiritual ways, I guess, because once we got to England, and this is at the age of 15 months, my aunt said to me, "You were the weirdest looking baby. You were very quiet. You never made a noise. And you just stared." I'm like, dang, I had the Tone 40 thing going for me already. I was a past life clear. I must have been a past life clear. Boom.
Well, you're certainly not quiet now, and we love that about you, Cheryl.
Right. It didn't stick.
You said your dad sort of knew L. Ron Hubbard. Would you say they were friends?
Yes, to a point, yeah. He always explained that to me. I knew the big guy. I knew the big man. My dad joined one of the early Sea Org ships, the Royal Scotsman or the Flying Scotsman, the Royal Scotsman, I think it was. And I don't think LRH was on that one. That one was captained by the lady. He was always very rude about her. Hannah Eltringham. She was the captain, and she put him in liability, and he didn't like her one bit. Then he said he blew 3 times from the Sea Org, and then he went back. After he got rid of me and my mom, he married this other lady, and they joined the Sea Org ship in Copenhagen, and that was on the Apollo. So he was on the Apollo for a bit there too with LRH, and apparently they would chit chat. They were friends. Apparently Mary Sue loved my dad. Now, I don't know. This is things he's told me. I don't know how true this is or not. And see, he repeated the same stories over and over, and allegedly, exactly. He repeated the same things over and over and over. So I kind of think they were true. But he was very close to Mary Sue. Mary Sue really liked him. And when LRH and Mary Sue used to go off ship when they were docked and go out to dinner to a restaurant, they would have only one or two people with them. They only took a small entourage, and he would be one of them. Like, oh, well, how nice for you. So that's what, to me, my dad really was full on Scientology because he had met LRH and was friends with him and really sucked into the whole thing. The man's charm, his dreadful teeth, and this awful tech that kept my dad locked inside his head until he passed this year.
Yeah, they don't call it the prison of belief for nothing. I remember coming to visit you in Clearwater, and at the time you were grieving the loss of your dad, which must have been so confusing or complicated, maybe is a better word for it. Because when did you have contact with him again?
Well, 4 years ago, I came here to Clearwater. I moved in with him because he called me and asked me to come and take care of him. Now, he never took care of me a day in his life, never sent any child support. When my mum needed me to get a little dressing gown to go into the hospital to get me tonsils out, he told her to sell her body to get the money. So that's how much he cared about his havingness.
No, he left you a bunch of letters, didn't he, where he was sort of talking, it was him and your mum talking to each other via these letters, which you've been reading on your channel.
Yeah, because, back in the 70s, they used to just write letters to, and nasty letters too, and my mum kept them all so that when I grew up, she was very vengeful. It's the narcissism part of it. She kept them to make sure I saw her victimhood and how he attacked it. That was part of the narcissism. Because I was like, girl, you kept these letters. You didn't keep much else in life, but you kept these letters. Yeah, so I actually got to see that those were the words my father wrote to my mother when I was 4 years old and needed a dressing gown. And that's Scientology for you. Don't be out exchange. You can't be out exchange. And that's why for him, it was hard for him to ask me to come move in with him. He was giving me somewhere to live. I've been homeless the past 15 years of my life. Now, by homeless, I don't mean that I was living in a box on the street. I didn't have my own home. I was living in other people. I'd lost my home to foreclosure years ago in 2012, unfortunately. So after that, I've just been renting rooms and bopping around from place to place. So to me, that was homeless and it was quite uncomfortable. Well, my dad didn't ever like being out exchange. During that time, I'm like, Dad, I just need a little bit of help. If you can just give me a little bit just so I can move into a place. And he explained to me that wouldn't help me at all, how that would be out exchange, and that I really need to figure it out for myself.
So he was a die-hard Scientologist until the end.
Yeah. And every time I talk to him, you should think about joining the Sea Org. Oh my God, this man.
No.
So it was constant. He wouldn't ever help me for him to ask me to come move in with him. I knew he really needed me. So I came 4 years ago in the middle of the pandemic to Florida, where no one was wearing a mask and everyone was screaming freedom. I'm going to go die in Florida now. So and I knew what it was going to be like because I'd lived with him previously, and he's a Scientologist. Not allowed to speak to any of the neighbors. Good morning, yes, that's it. Fair weather, nice weather we're having, bad weather we're having. That's it. If he hears me start talking to one of the neighbors or them asking me how things are going, he would bark at me, and the neighbors would look like, oh. He wouldn't let me speak to anyone, because you can't be PTS, and there's always a third person that causes problems. So if I spoke to anyone, that could cause a problem.
And this is you as a fully grown adult 4 years ago.
Yes.
So I wake in the morning and I stay inside and I take a deep breath and try not to cry and I scream from the top of my lungs, what the fuck is going on?
So I never really spoke to much of the neighbors. I go out to the hot tub or to the gym to exercise or go for a walk or whatever. That's fine. But other than that, he's right here all the time. What are you doing? What are you thinking? You're like constantly, what are you reading? What are you watching? And I'm a grown woman and I don't have a lot of patience because I'm menopausal now. But somehow I had to keep it all in because, he's old and I'm still a normie and feel like, well, he's my dad and I got to take care of him regardless. So I had that in my heart. And that's all I wanted to do was just help him drop his body the way he wanted with as little love as possible because he still couldn't give me love even at the end.
I don't know that a lot of people could have done that, Cheryl. Like, many people might have just gone, well, see you later, in the nicest way, respectfully, no. But it speaks true to your empathy. It speaks true to your character that you would, do that.
Thank you. I mean, I took care of my mom and she, I was holding her hand the last breath she took. So I figured I'd be here for my dad too. Yeah. And it was very hard. It's been very confusing, like you said, to have a Scientologist parent and help them pass into the other world when they don't want to do anything the normal way. Medications, at the end of life, they give you, it's full on psych meds. It's all Haldol and morphine and Xanax and Valium. But I had to administer those to him, unfortunately. But, I was just trying to do it the way he would want, whether I wanted it or not. He was screaming at the doctors, arguing with all the doctors. It was very difficult. And then just spiritually, like I became a Reiki master. I'm New Age. I grew up Jewish, Catholic, a little bit of everything. And then Scientology also. So just this mishmash of everything. And I'm really confused. Really confused. I'm having a bit of a conflict right now, spiritually, I think, since my dad's passing. So I guess it's just a journey. I'll figure this out sooner or later, but it's been a bit rough this year.
I'm sure you're not alone in that, Cheryl. Like, this is, often what happens when we lose people is people go through a sort of a spiritual shake-up because you don't have any answers, you don't know what's happened. So I can completely understand that, and I think it's totally normal. In the midst of all the abnormal and strange things that have happened, with her having Scientology in your life, probably fairly normal, to have that. And speaking of that, you don't ever define yourself as an ex-Scientologist from what I've heard. No, like me.
No.
You're like, no, family did it. I thought it was weird.
Yep. Now you see all these e-meters I have. I have 4 e-meters, and Aaron asked me the other day, well, have you plugged them in? Do they work? And I'm like, Aaron, I don't know. And no, I'm not going to plug them in. I've done my best all my life to stay away from those things. That even just having them in the house is like blasphemy right now to me. But
why do you have them? Or is it for the channel?
No, this is my inheritance. My dad died and I got some, and my uncle died and I got some more. So it's just me to heaven here.
I mean, it makes for a pretty cool set.
Well, this one is the wooden one of the originals, the old kind in the wooden box that doesn't quite look like these Mark 7s at all. This is the old timey one. So that one's kind of maybe $5 more valuable than the others. But yeah, this is my inheritance. That's what I got. E-meters.
Yeah, sorry about that. We kind of, we don't choose what we inherit, unfortunately.
No, we don't. And also, I'm worried now about reincarnation. It's been something that I've always had this belief in, but since finding out how much my dad believes in it, now I'm like, I don't know if I want to believe that anymore. And I'm having this conflict. It's so, yeah. Do we reincarnate? Do we not? Do we drop things? Do we pick them up? Do we get electronically pulled into implant stations?
I'm going to go with that one's probably unlikely.
I'm hoping it's very unlikely. I'm hoping. I hear they don't have popcorn at that theater.
Oh my goodness, yes. You don't identify yourself as an ex-Scientologist, but you do know a lot about the doctrine and stuff. How was that doctrine used in your life growing up? How did you experience it?
Well, it was used at every turn for every thought. And I just felt I said this to Eric Rader the other day. It kind of came to me how I felt as a child growing up, being surrounded by people in Scientology, you feel powerless because no matter what the event, the thought, the occasion, whatever's happening at that time that you might need resolve with, they're going to come at you with the same Scientology sayings, the same, this is what you got to do. And it's always not something you can do. It was a Scientology saying every time. And I felt so powerless because I knew what was coming somehow. I remember I was little and we went to a beach down in, my aunt and my nana and my cousins lived in Portsmouth. So one day we went down to the beach and I got an earache. All of a sudden my ears started hurting really bad. So I was crying. I remember being upset about it. Like I kept rubbing my ear going, oh, it hurts. I remember I went up to my aunt and I'm like, hey, and even before I could get a word out, I'm being griefy. Don't be griefy. And go sit over there. They ordered me to go sit by myself. Now I was upset and I was young. I was tiny. I remember sitting there by myself going, I stopped crying because I was confused. Like, well, my mom would have picked me up or something. And I remember sitting there completely confused. And then I learned I wasn't allowed to cry. I wasn't allowed to get upset. And so that's like
It's low tone, right?
Yes, you've got to be uptone all the time. You can't get griefy or banky. Don't be banky. You're being banky. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I just knew that this side of the family had different words than this side of the family. And these guys had different accents than these guys did. So to me, it was just, but it was very confusing as a child to be in pain, be uncomfortable and feel alone. And the adults around you ignore you. And the more I cried, the more they ignored me. So that's when I realized I needed to stop crying, which is completely unnatural for a child's instincts. It's completely unnatural.
Oh, I can totally relate to you on that point. It's completely a Scientology thing about the sort of no crying, and I experienced that myself. Do you feel that that affected you growing up as an adult? That whole not being able to get affection when you needed it. I think it affects how you grow up and interact with people, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I believe it's spilled over into every aspect of my life, really, in relationships, in my jobs, how I related with people. I'm a masker extraordinaire. I can mask all day long because I was taught to as a child. I couldn't show my own feelings. I couldn't be authentic, who I felt like I was being, like myself. I couldn't be myself. I had to be this perfect little thing, this perfect little girl. They wanted me to wear dresses. I just wanted to put some sneakers on and some trousers and just go chase, cats up a tree. That's all I wanted to do, was climb stuff all day and play Lego.
How feral of you.
But I had to become this, and I think that's why now I'm completely rebelling, even at this later stage in my life. Because I had to become, for a certain part of my family, very robotic. And it's very uncomfortable because I'm very fidgety. I've been in fight or flight my whole life. Very fidgety, I think I have ADHD undiagnosed for sure. And you weren't allowed to be yourself as a child. It really affected my life in more ways than one. Every aspect.
I mean, you're definitely a fashionista from what I've seen of your protest looks. Of all the protests that I've seen, you've got this level of creativity, that I just don't know where it comes from, this sense of humor, the creativity. It's just brilliant to watch. What gave you the idea to create some of these things you've done?
Well, it's just knowing the tech. It's knowing Scientologies. It's knowing how they think and who they are. It's knowing what will get to them. What's poking, that button. It's finding the buttons. And I know where to find the buttons on them. So for months, I need to find a briefcase. I really need a briefcase. And boom, a briefcase appears in my life. So what do I write on it? OT 9 and 10. That was the first thing I took out. It's knowing what will get them kind of rattled, because I want them to think, oh yeah, she's a squirrel, she's annoying, but T9 and 10. Yeah, we don't have those yet, do we? So, I want to kind of push a button and get them thinking. Because I know here in Clearwater that all these OTs, they're fully in KSW all day long. So it's really hard to sway them to want to leave, even if they do have valid doubts. But I think I can try and help.
Yeah, you're doing it in a playful way. Nothing I've seen of you has been like horrible or anything like that. I think you've come at it from quite a comedic angle. You know, you've said on your channel that you've grown up with a Scientologist and a narcissist, which are those two things just separately are a lot. So I suppose you're a great person to compare them, though. Do you think what's the difference between a Scientologist and a narcissist?
There isn't much difference. There really isn't much difference, to be honest. They both act the same kind of way. This is why my parents were together. They both kind of act the same way, making sure that I was always in a state of needing them, a state of codependence, because a narcissist will attach themselves to you emotionally, and they know how to get you to, they know how to manipulate your inner being, basically. And I always had to make sure my mom was okay. I always had to make sure she wasn't upset and she was feeling, you only taking care of them constantly because she's always in need. It's always about her. It was never about me. It could never be. Oh my God, if I ever brought up, well, mom, I think I need, oh, look at you. Who do you think you are? It's a constant. And my dad was like that too. Like you're just trying to be, what was it he said to me? Like you just need attention right now.
You're trying to be interesting.
Yeah, right. And there's another word they use that on Scientology for stuff like that. When you're just trying to, be like in the way. So it was really hard because when I was with one parent, I'm like, oh God, would the other one save me? And then when I was with the other one, I'm like, oh, would the other one save me? You know what I mean? It was very, very confusing. And I didn't get a hug from any of them. I just wanted a hug. That's all I wanted. So also when we returned to England, when I was 15 months old, my dad sent us away because my mum didn't want to join Scientology. So we returned back to Kilburn to.
Can you imagine that, by the way? Just to pause you for one second. This is a new dad with his wife, and the cult he has joined has gone, we need to get rid of your family.
Yeah.
Literally send them out of the country. This is how we know Scientology is a cult as well, because this attitude to people that don't believe in it is to just cut you off and isolate you from all of those people.
Yeah. Well, the people at the org, they're like, well, if she's not going to join you, she's an SP and you need to send them away. So they were the ones that convinced him to go buy a plane ticket and go home and go, here, pack your bags, you're leaving tomorrow. That was it, out of the blue. So it broke my mom. That just did her in. She's 26 now, by herself and a kid. Oh, great. And being sent back to Kilburn after living in Washington, D.C. in a nice flat, I mean, that was a bit much. So he just wanted to make sure we were completely out the way. He was okay with that. That was because by then he was fully in and he didn't see the need to have other people around. He didn't see the, families. He was a Thetan and he was free and he was doing his own thing.
Did your dad know about Xenu?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the first time I asked him about that, did I get a look? I'm like, well, Dad, when you open the OT3 materials, what did you think? And he just kind of looked at me, goes, what do you mean? I go, well, after you read it, what was your initial thought? Did you go, yeah? Or did you have to sit with that for a minute? And he wouldn't answer me. He just gave me dirty looks like, how dare you talk about my religion like that? And I'm like, okay. All right, I guess I'll just figure that one out by myself, yeah? And I wasn't even trying to be, I was just trying to question him, like ask him about it. I wasn't trying to be rude, but Scientologists always feel like you're attacking their religion all the time.
He was probably wondering how you didn't have pneumonia.
Well, see, that's it. Like, I'm standing here and I've been a smoker all my life. No pneumonia. I didn't see, I could have asked him that, but I think that would have been digging. That's when he would have gotten really mad at me if I would have said, how come I don't have pneumonia and I've never paid for OT3? He would have really gotten upset with me.
You've touched on quite a few of these things. You've had a very, I guess, tumultuous is the word for what I would use, what it was like with your parents. Stints of homelessness as well. You know, that must have been so difficult. And you've mentioned on your channel before, you had a 5150 at one point. You know, what led up to that and what was that experience like for you?
It was because of trauma. When we returned to England, I was a baby. We moved in with my mom's sister and my mom's sister's husband. They had 3 boys. I grew up with 3 boys getting beaten up every day. And their father was, unfortunately, a pedophile. So I grew up in my first 7 years of life until I was 8. I was someone's toy. And that was a lot of trauma. And it was at such a young age that it's always going to be a journey. I'm never going to be free of the trauma of what happened to me. This is why I try and make everything fun now, because life is so, number one, it's really short. And number 2, it's so boring and it's so annoying. And I'm tired of being upset all the time. I've been in fight or flight. I've suffered from depression and anxiety. So after my daughter was born, I was just masking life, trying to just get through life. My daughter was born and I started recovering memories and things got pretty bad for a good 2 years there. I kind of lost my marbles a bit and I just wanted to unalive myself all the time. That's all I ever wanted to do. And at one point I'd driven off into the forest on the Ortega Highway and sat there and I was about ready to do things. And next thing, there's a helicopter. And I look around and I'm surrounded by police cars, just surrounded by police cars. And they're like, nope, not today, lady. You're not doing that today. So they carted me off and they took me. I got 5150'd or Baker acted, as they say here in Florida. I was in California at the time. That's a 72-hour hold they put you on. And it's awful. It's absolutely awful. But they let me go halfway. They let me free halfway because they're like, oh, she doesn't belong here. She was just having a bad day. But that's how good I am at masking. Because I still wanted to unalive myself. I was so good at being able to go in the office and go, you know, I have a job and I have a child and I have things to do. I'm so good at masking. They let me go.
Who called the police?
My mom. And I needed her at the time. So the one person I needed in my life to help me and she knows what I was going through too, because I just opened up to her. Because one day we were sitting in the kitchen and she called me. She goes, you're a bad mother. And I turned around, I looked at her, I go, you know who the bad mother is? You. You know why? You know what Reg did to me all those years while you were out on the weekends having a little rum and coke and a dancey dance? Guess what was happening to me? And she, now you'd think a mother would have some kind of compassion or empathy for the child, but the first thing out of her mouth was, oh, now I understand why you've been a bitch all these years.
Wow.
So this is how a narcissist will speak to you because, oh, I can't be the victim. She has to be the victim and I'm the one causing annoyance. And, oh, well, now we know what's wrong with you. It was always, there's something wrong with you, Cheryl. There's always something wrong with you. So that was, I'm like, oh my God, Mom, aren't moms supposed to be loving? Like, isn't she supposed to be giving me a hug right now? But no, I got none of that. So I had no support. I had no support system whatsoever. So I ended up in the middle of a forest about to do something really not great.
I'm so sorry you went through that, Cheryl. The way your mum spoke to you about it is just very unkind and nobody should have to go through that. I do think your strength is crazy incredible. you know, and it wouldn't be shocking to anyone that you ended up in that situation. I'm glad you're here, and
Thank
I'm
you.
sure everyone
Me too.
I'm sure everyone who is
Thank you.
watching is so glad you're here as well. You know, you lived to tell the tale, and now you can share your experience with the world as well.
And then I did a lot of therapy, of course, and I did seminars, and I read all the books, and I watched all the CDs, and I became a Reiki master because I wanted to heal myself on a spiritual level.
What is that? What's a Reiki master?
Well, basically it's energy healing. Like your emotions, the emotions you're feeling are caused by these energy centers in your body, your chakras. And depending what's going on in your life, you might have a bit more anger in you, or upset, or happiness, or joy, or just strength of will. And one of these might take over your aura a bit. And what a Reiki master will do, or a Reiki practitioner will like calm down and clear out your chakra, your aura, and calm you down with gentle energy, universal energy, not my own, but from the universe. I'm just a vessel.
Can you see people's auras?
I can't. I'm not good at that at all. I know. Well, people have told me they can. I don't know if they can or not, but people have told me they can. I can't see
Do you
them.
believe them?
Not really. I'm very skeptical. This is see, because I've been involved in so many different traditions and around so many different weird people. I'm very skeptical of everything. And I think that's why I'm even having my own spiritual conflict. I'm skeptical of myself and my own thoughts right now. So, like I said, I'm in breakdown, and I'll get to the breakthrough eventually. But that's what Reiki Master does. People come in, and you do a little session. It's different. There's so many different ways of doing Reiki, but hands on, hands off. I like doing Reiki for animals. Animals are better than people.
I agree.
They're quicker too. They get it quicker. Humans are a little more, but it's just a very energetic way of thinking. And you meditate, and you just spend a little more time in the ether than you do on land, and that's what I need.
Well, this is the thing. We all need to be allowed to experiment and figure out what makes it make sense for us and what helps us get through. You said the spiritual stuff has kind of been helping you get through. Has anything else kind of helped you, deal with the trauma of this stuff?
I don't know. I did just lots of therapy and becoming self-aware of of what you put out, because that's what you're going to get back. And I don't mean that in like a way. I just mean that like really in life, whatever you put out, you're going to get back. If we say in Wiccan terms, threefold. But so I just try. This is why it's even hard for me to get in arguments with people, because I see they probably have a point, and they have a reason for arguing their point. You know what I mean? I just think you got to get to a point where you're self-aware, and you're putting out kindness and empathy and caring, and still keep your smarts around you. Don't let people walk all over you, because I've been walked all over. That's why I don't let people walk all over me anymore.
Yeah, you do that really well. And, you are kind and ferocious, especially in your protesting. You've been outside of Clearwater flag for the better part of a year, and you seem to have made some really good friends there. What is it like being outside that building so regularly, protesting your ass off? What is it like, and why are you doing it?
It's awesome. Okay, so if anyone goes on my TikTok, you'll see there's a Scientology TikTok I did, years. I've been complaining about Scientology ever since. But being able to go outside, at first it was scary. At first, because they're Scientologists, and we know about fair gaming. And even my cousins, they're like, yo, what are you doing? You got to be careful. I'm like, it's not like it used to be, cuz. He's like, you got to be careful. What are you doing there, girl? But being able, because before the whole protesting thing started, every now and then, I would just drive down to the Fort Harrison and just walk up and down. And I would listen to the podcast, Leah Remini and Mike Rinder, when they did their podcast. That's it, the Fair Game podcast. I would walk up and down and just walk around just staring at people. Just kind of letting them know my body thetans don't like yours. So I just had this thing where I just wanted to go down there. So I did it by myself every now and then. But I didn't want to bother anyone too much, because I didn't want to get busted or get in trouble. And then as soon as Aaron said, hey, do you want to come down and protest? I was out the door. Like, oh, I'm not going to be alone? Absolutely. For me, and this is the Mecca. This is the Vatican Scientology. This is where David Miscavige is. This is where little Tommy Cruise hangs out. John Travolta drives by all the time. This is where the big wigs are, all the whales and all the big public people. We can really get some good protesting done here. Now, it's different from the protesting in some of the other places, which are the orgs, because these people are OTs, they're higher level, they've been in it for a lot longer, or they've done it a lot faster, and they're all the way up to, higher OT level.
They don't do much confront and shattering, though, do they?
Not at all. For all the talk about confront and shatter, they can't. We break them down. We watch them and then they give us those looks. It's like, your TRs. Oh, get your TRs in. No, there's not a lot of confront and shattering. And this is why you can see Scientology is such nonsense, because it doesn't work. They're just pulling your empathy and love out of your heart and your body and making you a narcissist, because that's really what Scientology does. It extracts all the good stuff and leaves behind this very dry robot. There's no love, there's no kindness, no care. So I don't know is that how you clear a planet?
Clear their bank account, maybe.
That's all, yeah, because all I have is e-meters. I didn't get much left to me. Well, I have an apartment in Florida now, I've got to say. Okay, you left me an apartment.
Does Clearwater feel like home to you?
Okay. I've lived in California most of my life, here in America for over 30 years. So I really do miss California. Florida's not my favorite. It never was, because every time I came here, I would be hanging out with Scientology family. And I can't be griefy. I can't be banky. I can't be myself. You just have to sit there and smile through Christmas dinner or whatever. It was difficult. But the little girl inside of me, all she wanted was her daddy. So, of course, I would come here and waiting to see if he would crack eventually. Yes, honey, I love you. If he would crack, if he would break down one day, give me a hug and tell me he cared about me. So Florida isn't one of my, and we're in Clearwater. I mean, it's a nice enough place to be in Florida. There are other parts of Florida that they're not great. So it's not bad, but it's full of Scientologists. Wherever you go, they're everywhere. And like I said, Scientology always made me feel powerless as a person. It took away my strength and my will of being, because it wouldn't let me be who I was just by what my dad would share with me. There's no love there. So it's kind of like, this is why I'm trying to make Clearwater for me a fun place to be. I try not to be too rude. My family was Scientologists. I know they're good people. They're not bad people. So I don't want to be rude to the Scientologists. I want to push their buttons, but I don't want to exactly be rude or nasty to them, unless they're nasty to me, because it's not really getting me anywhere. It's just making me sick. So I just like yelling really fun things at them in the street that might annoy them. There, what can you not have an opinion on? Kids can't consent, no more kids in Scientology. It's Friday night, so we've got some OTs. Like there was one in LA, it cracked up Eric. So, because Eric Rader came out for the day to protest with us when we went to LA, and this really handsome Scientologist was walking across the street to go towards Big Blue. And I just went, hey, remember me? We were married in a past life. I remember you from my time track. Want to get married again? And Eric just about lost it. And that's how I like to use their own tech on them.
In terms of, Scientology's status at the moment in America, they are technically a religion over there, which many of us find baffling. What do you hope for the future of Scientology, the world's fastest shrinking religion?
Well, I'm hoping by the time Miss Scavenge drops the body, that Scientology has dwindled to such a tiny group that they just won't be able to hold on to the reins. And I'm hoping that Scientology itself, as it is today, will blow up, will explode, and it will be no more. Now, like I've always said, I think people will still be doing the tech. There is a huge independent Scientology community out there. My dad, my cousin became part of it in the end because they wanted to still get their auditing. They love getting their auditing. It's that dopamine release. So I think people will continue to use the tech, but I'm just hoping that the actual religious group, the RTC and everything that Scientology is right now, I hope that that will be disbanded, that it will just completely, just wither away. People won't be joining. If we keep protesting and we keep putting the word out there, awareness, letting people know, please don't join. This is a cult. This is dangerous. This is bad for you. That Scientology will dwindle until it's nothing. But
Yeah.
I still think that unfortunately the tech will be used in future because people, whoever's used that tech already, they kind of, it hooks them. They really, that's who they are. That's what they believe. Now, I'm not against people believing what they want to believe. Absolutely. I just don't like when your spirituality hurts people, like your entire family. And unfortunately, here in America, we've got the, religions under the First Amendment. It's in the Constitution. So if you are deemed a religion, it's really hard to lose that nomenclature, to lose that label, because it's a religion. You can't touch that. It's whatever people believe. They really protect people's beliefs here, which, I'm not saying that's wrong, but they protect them to the point where they don't really. There were two little girls that ran away from a Scientology building the other day because children are being hurt on a daily basis. You and I were hurt. We weren't even hardly in it. We just grew up with people that did it. And we were hurt by it. So I can't imagine. And we see the kids walking in the flag building every weekend. There's kids every 5 minutes coming in. Not all of them are with the parents. They're with this one girl who walks them around.
What do you think they're doing there?
Changing the beds, cleaning, doing hard labor. These are Sea Org kids. I don't care what they say. There is kids in there still doing stuff. We see them and they're not always with their parents. There's this one particular young lady who walks children around. I see her all the time. And they're always different kids. They're not hers. It's not great. So we know there's children being hurt in that just by order of using Scientology on them. As a baby, having me do locationals. I'm like, not even a year old, and you're already trying to put this stuff in my little head. I want to protest for the kids. I want to help. They might not see it now, but I want them to see us standing out there and being nice enough to them, but throw in a little seed so that when they grow up, they'll go, oh yeah, she was right. I remember her. I remember what she said on the street. She was right. My concerns are valid. My doubts are real. Just so they know that there's always going to be someone out there ready and willing to give them a hand and help them get out. And then I'm also there for the Sea Org people. They don't really see it. They are so far in and they are kept in that prison in their little head. Because they are the ones saving this planet. If we can be there for anyone in the Sea Org getting out, oh my God, get in the car. I'll take you for pancakes right now.
You know what? You make such a good point about people who are in there, especially young people. Seeing you guys out there protesting. I was at Flag when I was 9, and another time when I was much younger. And I thought Scientology was so weird. You know, I thought the people were weird. I thought the e-meter was weird. I thought all of it was weird. And if I saw someone going, hey, this is weird, I would have been like, okay, so I'm not alone. I'm not alone with this.
Right.
You know, so
Right. And it might not have affected you at the time, but because you connected to that, it would have stayed in your mind. And years later, probably got, oh, you know what? Yeah, bing, I remember that. You know, that engram pops back up.
yeah, no, absolutely.
So I want to be an engram.
Well, you are fantastic, Engram. That is for sure. I think
Thank
the
you.
work you're doing out there is incredible, Cheryl. You know, props to you. I think it's amazing. But do you have any message you want, anything you want to leave our audience with, you know, people that are under the radar or just watching the channel?
If you are watching us and you're under the radar, I'm ready and willing at any time to come get you and take you somewhere nice and cozy where you can get a good sleep, a nice bath. We've got a hot tub. Take whatever you need. Anyone under the radar, if you're watching and you need help and you see me out there on the street, I'm always there for you. I will always be there for you. Other than that, for the protesters, oh my God, we just got to keep going. We just got to keep going. Just keep getting out there and spreading awareness to the regular public, spread awareness to those who are in. And we just got to keep going. We can't stop. Now that we've started, we can't stop. We just got to keep, that's my thing. We just got to keep going. And then my last thing is like what I say at the end of all my videos is just be nice to each other, please, because it's hard enough out there as it is. I'm a delicate flower. I'm not soft, but I'm a delicate flower. And so let's just be nice to each other.
Yeah, that's a great message on all counts. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate you taking the time to do this interview today. You are awesome. I'm so impressed with the work you've done and with the way you've overcome such difficult circumstances. Where can people find you if they want to see what you're doing?
Well, I'm on YouTube at Feral Cheryl on the Loose. You can email me at feralcherylontheloose@gmail.com if you have any questions. I'm also on TikTok. I can't remember am I Damselfly, Lady Damselfly? I can't remember my TikTok right now. No, I should be under Feral Cheryl also. I think I am under Feral Cheryl. I did go viral on TikTok a couple of years ago, so I have a large following over there. And that's where I do all my stupid stuff. I haven't been doing a lot lately, but hopefully I'm going to get back on that horse and start doing more.
Incredible. Well, I'll look forward to seeing the content you put out in the future. I'm sure it will be full of lots of laughs and some fantastic messaging as well. We are going to sign this interview off. You guys, thank you so much for watching. Go follow Feral Cheryl on the Loose. If you like this video, click somewhere on the screen. There will be another video for you to watch. My name is Kelly. I do videos about cults and other weird things on the internet. So click somewhere on the screen and go watch another one.
I ain't afraid of the dark, 'cause once you let the light in, you won't see the beautiful stars shining down from afar. No, I ain't afraid of the dark.